Hello and welcome, everybody.
Hello. It's great to have you all here. Today, we are talking about amplifying voices through vegan publishing and creating a vegan legacy. And joining us today is one of the people in the movement that you will just see everywhere. Once you see her and you've heard her name, she just makes so much happen. And we're so excited to have her here. Mitali Deypurkaystha has forged a successful career as a content writer, a copywriter, a ghostwriter of 7 non-fictions books, and now as a book consultant and publisher. Her latest bestseller, The Freedom Master Plan, Gareth is showing off right here, is already being celebrated by influential vegans all over the world for not only helping them write a book in the first place, but also a best-selling book at that, and to achieve expert status both in and outside the movement. Who wouldn't want that? An expert in the vegan movement. I like that. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mitali. It's lovely to see you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
We've really been looking forward to having this chat. And as we were just talking before we even started this, for me to finally get to meet you, because you and Jackie have been talking for a long time now. And I've always been waiting for my opportunity to talk to you. So it's so lovely to have you on today. So for our audience, Mitali is otherwise known as the vegan publisher. And she's on a mission to empower vegan experts, influencers, and entrepreneurs to end the exploitation of animals, humans, and the exploitation of humans and the environment too. One book at a time, that is. Before we delve into her amazing work and how our audience here today can benefit from it, we'd love to know about how your ethical connection first began. I understand it all started from a cat named Aisha. We'd love to know a little bit more about this story today.
Well, she's actually here if you'd like to meet her. For once, she's actually behaving herself. Normally, she's just running around. But if you give me 2 seconds, let me just go pick her up.
Aisha, darling. We interviewed Aisha the other day. Aisha was on our panel. Aisha is the cat.
Oh, hello.
Hi, Aisha.
Hello, baby. Do you want to say hello to everybody? And
she's made a lot of great stuff happen through you, hasn't she?
Oh, gosh, yeah. It just goes to show how something that you think is quite inconsequential can lead to so many different things. So Isha turned up in my life in 2010. I didn't even want her. I'll be honest. I'm very honest. Didn't want her. I just thought, great, there's going to be fur everywhere in the house. I didn't really enjoy the idea of that. My youngest sister, who was at school at the time, really, really wanted a cat. So we decided, do you want to sit down, baby? You want to sit down? You want to sit over there?
Oh, thank you so much for joining us today.
She's like, yeah, it's a typical cat, like, yeah, I can't be bothered. I love that nonchalance, yeah, whatever, you know. And my little sister really, really wanted a cat. So the family decided, okay, let's just do it. And then within a few weeks, I was just watching this little, she was about a year old. So not a kitten, she was a fully fledged adult, but a young adult. And just watching her blossom and understand the different characters in my family, of which there are many, you know, there are quite a few characters in my family. And she would almost start to understand the different characters, who's up, who's down, who's had a bad day at work, who's had a bad day at school, just very aware and very sentient in a way that I just didn't think was possible, because I didn't grow up with pets, you see. I'm speaking for a lot of Asian families, I would say, in the 70s and 80s. We don't come from a culture where you have pets in the house. It's just not something we do. So you know how in Western culture you have the family dog, and we don't really have that. So I grew up, you know, without dogs and cats or rabbits or anything like that around me. So I really did, you know, drink the Kool-Aid about the whole animals are dumb. They don't really know what's going on. That kind of, you know, that dissonance that we have, that they don't really get what we're doing to them. And that's what makes it okay for us to carry on doing what we're doing to them. And then Isha just awoke something in me. And then that horrible realization that cats are not even the top 20 of most intelligent animals. And we eat some of those, sadly. So that was the beginning of the end of me being an omnivore, basically. I just couldn't do it. It took about 3 years in total. I'd love to say it happened overnight, but it didn't. I did the whole nonsense that we go through where we're going to go to humane farms and all that nonsense. So I did that for about 3 years, but it was always in the back of my mind that it still wasn't right. So 3 years later, I just finally did it. And that was that. That was in 2013. But then since then, it's just grown in me. And the more I get into this movement, the more people I meet, the more I understand. It's, I got into it for animal rights, as you guys did as well. You're vegan for the animals. But it doesn't really matter what route you take to get into veganism. I was actually listening to one of your recent interviews with Dr. Akil Taha, wonderful gentleman. I've spoken to him a couple of times. And he was talking about how he got into veganism for health, whereas his wife and his child got into it for the animals. But it doesn't really matter, because once you're in there, you just become generally a compassionate person all over. So you become compassionate for animals, you become compassionate for the planet, you become compassionate to other humans, their health, which is usually deteriorating if they're eating animal products. You become compassionate all around. So it really doesn't matter how you get into it. Once you're in there, once you're in the mix, you just meet these amazing people, and it just grows your belief in veganism. And that's kind of what's happened to me over the last decade, to the point that it's now become my livelihood. I thought I'd be happy doing veganism as a personal thing. I make sure that I don't consume any animal products. I thought that would be enough. But then over the last 10 years, it wasn't enough. And now it's become my entire livelihood.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. And you're absolutely spot on with that. And yes, we are vegan FTA, vegan for the animals here. But yeah, we don't mind however you want to come into this, because for me, I was completely, for folks who already know my story, I was dead set against vegetarianism. Veganism wasn't on the map whatsoever. But if it hadn't been for a health issue with my family, and me taking that time to reflect on myself and, actually look at even doing a plant-based diet, I wouldn't have ever gone near veganism, because I was anti it before. And so for me, health opened that door. And then it wasn't long before that ethical connection came, with having those moments of connection with the animals, like you had with that, seeing that sentientism, seeing just how beautiful those connections are. And I think all of us, I'm sure everyone in the comments as well can probably vouch for, you have those moments with the animals. Yeah, they know when you're upset. I'm a cataholic myself. I seem to get on. I'm not a dog person. I'm definitely a cat person. But I've had so many times over the years, when I've been really upset, and they just know to come cuddle up, bunt you with their head, maybe claw you a bit just for a bit of amusement on their end as well. But, they know when something's going on. They can see it, they can feel it. And I suppose that's the whole thing. We're all resonating in a way, and I suppose they must pick up on that emotional state that we're in. And it's just so lovely that they can be ambassadors for a more compassionate world.
Exactly. And you're so right. When you can go vegan for yourself, that's fine, or for whatever, or for the animals that you personally want to save by not consuming them. But so many of us feel compelled to not just be vegan, but to do something. And as I said at the start, you do so much. Honestly, guys, Mitali is one of life's mega doers. And in this interview, we will be focusing on a field of advocacy that we tend to hear less about, really, don't we, in the grassroots animal rights community? And that is business activism, which Mitali is such a pro at. As regular viewers will know very well, we need activism all across the board. And when it comes to getting our message out there are many ways to be effective. But today we are focusing on creating books, and more so the opportunities that generates and drives from these books. As someone who advocates predominantly in the field of business these days, apart from being a mermaid, which we will go into before we leave today's chat, do you believe that this is one area that more of our activist community should be incorporating into their strategies and tactics for spreading that compassionate message?
Absolutely, because call me naive here, Jackie, but I genuinely don't believe the average human being, the average omnivore, I should say, is sat there thinking, yes, animals are going to die for me today. That's not when they're waking up on a morning, that's not what they're thinking. They usually put upon people. They've got lots to do in their day. They've got huge responsibilities to family, to friends, to their employers. And they just don't think. It's like, that phrase, cognitive dissonance. They just don't think. They're just getting on with their day. You give them viable alternatives that are just as efficient as what they've already got, but then you tell them, but this is more ethical, this is kinder. Most people usually go for that. If you give them product A and product B and everything else is equal, but product B is kinder, it's more sustainable, It's, it's not used any cruelty. It's not exploited anybody on another part of the planet. Most people tend to go, oh, I'll buy that one then, because why would I buy product A if I can buy product B? Why would I go for service A when I can go for service B? So, but that can only happen through business. And this is, I like the fact that you called it business activism, because it took me a while to realize that, business is activism. When you have a vegan and ethical, a plant-based business, and you are creating viable alternatives to what's already out there, which is full of cruelty and unkindness, and it's not sustainable, that is your activism. Because, if you look at any revolution that's ever happened on this planet, when you watch a Hollywood film, it's all really nicely put into a chronological line, because they have to. It's a 90-minute runtime, so they have to put it like that. But if you actually read into any revolution, it was a many-pronged attack. It wasn't just one thing happened and suddenly there was a revolution. That's not how it happened. It's lots of different things come together to make a change. And that's what veganism is going to be. Well, it is already about, and going into the future, it's going to get even bigger. It's still, boots on the ground activism, amazing people who are exposing what's really happening out there and waking people up. That still needs to happen. But we also, when you wake people up, you got to then give them something, a viable alternative. I remember when I was in my 20s, I was a bit of a staunch atheist, and I was a bit of an annoying, looking back now, a bit of an annoying atheist, really. I was the sort of person who really enjoyed, testing, especially if I had somebody who's quite religious, kind of testing their patience and really, pushing them for the fact that there's no evidence for God. And then as I got older, I realized, well, that's really unkind of me, because I'm okay to be an atheist, because I get enough compassion from people and animals and just life in general. But there's not many people like me. There's a lot of people who really do need to believe that there's something beyond life out there. And when a loved one dies, they need to believe that that wasn't the end, that their loved one is going somewhere better, and then we'll see them again. They need those crutches, I guess. And me being a terrible atheist in my 20s and kind of making them lose their religion, but not giving them a viable alternative, it's just cruel. And I look back now and I just think, what a bit of a biatch I was then to do that. Don't do that to people. Don't make them lose, a belief without giving them a viable alternative, something else for them to hang their hats on. And essentially with activism, if all we have is exposing what's happening out there, which is very fundamentally important, but then we don't give people viable alternatives, you just made things worse for them now, because now they know, now they feel guilty, and they're still going to carry on doing it and feel terrible about it. So that is where I really love working with vegan and plant-based entrepreneurs, business owners, experts, because it is that concept of activism through business, giving people viable alternatives, so that when they do awake from all the cruelty that's happening around them because of them, they can say, okay, but I can just go and do this. I can just switch that from this to that, and my life carries on, but now I'm being sustainable. Now I'm being anti-cruel, and I'm being all of these amazing things, but my life carries on. And that's what it's all about.
Oh,
I love that.
Yeah. It's I think it's, like as you started out saying, it's even evident in what we see in the advertising that comes from the opposition as well, with all the greenwashing stuff. Now they're trying to make sure that, oh yes, this is eco-friendly beef, it's all this sort of, so they're even trying to make it so that consumers are seeing this, there's a brighter side to this, and as you say, people are always going to go for what is the more ethical thing, because I don't, maybe there is the odd one out there who's absolutely barbaric, but I think, most of us are all aiming for the light. But it's so wonderfully put there with the business activism. And it is, if we want the boots on the ground, well, we need someone to make those boots. We need someone to make the feed afterwards. We need someone to do all the bits and pieces in between,
We've all got a role to play.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we keep on saying on here lately, this whole thing about if we're going to build a vegan world, we need everybody, because we need all those roles filled. And even with our recent animal cruelty panel that we did, we talked about, how for a lot of the work that we do here is often, it's ink and emails. We don't get out on the ground as often as we'd like, because we're doing some of the more background sort of work, more legislative sort of areas. But we need everyone everywhere. And so this sort of goes well into, our next question, and how there's one factor across the animal rights and liberation movement, and it's got a big problem, and it's trying to find better funding. There's so many brilliant and essential work being done by advocates who are struggling to pay rent. They're barely putting food on the table. They're just getting day by day, but they're giving the shirts off their own backs in order to be able to advocate for the animals. And that's fantastic. But, we're actually human beings as well. We can't survive off fresh air and the lawn clippings.
That seems to be the stereotype, isn't it? That we can just survive on grass and fresh air and trees. And it's like, no, we need a little bit more.
Yeah,
exactly. Vegans just don't like charging money for anything. We feel like we shouldn't,
Yeah, all too often we're sort of because we're doing this compassionate work.
I have to say, I find that really interesting as well, because I wonder, if you think about it, the reason why omnivores can carry on doing what they're doing is, cognitive dissonance, the ability to reduce living beings into objects, because that's essentially what we do. That's what I was doing, certainly before Isha came into my life. It's not suddenly Isha turns up in my life and suddenly all these animals are sentient. They were sentient well before Isha came into my life. I just chose not to see it because it's easier to eat meat, it's easier to consume dairy, it's easier to wear leather or have leather sofas. It's easier to do all of these things when you can, reduce beings down to objects. They don't really know anything, and then it's okay to do what we do. I wonder if when we wake up, because as vegans, there's usually an awakening that happens, and then suddenly we realize that we're part of something that is, well, let's face it, it's like a daily Holocaust, really, isn't it? Bigger than the actual Holocaust. More beings are dying every single day than the actual Holocaust. So it is hard. And I wonder if that's part of it. I wonder, once we've awoken to that, we get to a stage where we now feel like we can't do, we even give money. And that's a key thing I've noticed, especially with vegan entrepreneurs, is that money is evil. And I have to talk them out of it and say, well, money can't be good or evil. It's a thing. And it's almost like they've veered too far to the other side. They've gone from being able to objectify, which is what allowed them to consume animal products, to the pendulum swing right the other way. And now they're giving sentience to things that don't even have sentience, such as money. So money can't be good or evil. It depends on the being that has it. Think of all the good that's being done with the money. There's vegan entrepreneurs that are doing incredible things with the money that they're making. So it can't be good or evil. It's just a thing. It's a conduit, and it depends on who it goes to. And that is why I love doing what I do, because my entire business is all about getting the spotlight on these incredible vegan business owners and plant-based business owners, so they make more money, because that's where I want the money to go, because money isn't good or evil. So I'd rather have it in the hands of good people than the evil people. So I think you know her, Jackie, Lisa Fox from Vegan Business Tribe.
Yes.
I love what she does, and she calls, Vegan Business Tribe, she calls it, she and her partner David, they call it their Robin Hood experiment. Taking money from the evil and giving it to the good, so they do good with it. And I love that concept, and that's how we're thinking of money. Money isn't evil. Making a load of money and wanting to make a load of money isn't a bad thing. First of all, it means you're making the biggest impact you can possibly make. And secondly, you can't really do the best you can for the animals, for the planet, for the other human beings who are impacted through things like animal agriculture. You can't be there 100% for all of these beings if you haven't looked after yourself and your family first. How can you really be there for other beings if you're sat there worried about your financial stability and your financial future? It's not going to happen. You can only, in a strange way, if you think about it, kindness comes from privilege. And that's why, for example, I'm far more compassionate when I'm speaking to omnivores in second and third world countries than I am in first world. I have compassion for omnivores in first world countries, but more so, I would say, for second and third world countries, because they don't have the privilege to be vegan a lot of the times. They have to
Yeah.
eat what they've got around them. So asking someone in a developing country, well, you should be vegan, they're like, what? I'm just trying to make ends meet here. I'm just trying to feed myself and feed my family. So this is what I mean about, you've got to think of money as a good thing. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to make lots of money, because if you can give yourself and your family financial stability, you are now in that privileged state where then you can be benevolent and kind to everybody. When you talk about activists who are giving the shirts off their backs, it makes me sad, because they shouldn't need to give the shirts off their back. They shouldn't have to do that, because they can't be the best version of themselves when they're worried about the fact that they have to give their shirts off their back. They should be financially stable, so that way you can be the best, and that is what I love. I love working with plant-based and vegan business owners, because that's what I want them to do. And I talk into that. And I remember when I was rebranding, Jackie, you remember this. So it'll be about earlier this year when I rebranded as a vegan publisher. And I was kind of doing a lot of sort of investigating on the kind of language I should use. And, when it's in my adverts or in my blog posts or when I'm doing lives, that kind of thing. And there was that issue about, do I talk less about making profits and money and that kind of thing? Because the feedback, or what I was seeing in the industry, is you really should use language such as making an impact and things like that. And then I consciously said, no, if that means I'm going to lose some people because I'm talking in terms of profit and that capitalism is good, then so be it. Because I really, really do believe that money isn't good or evil. And it can be a massive force of good in the right hands. And my goal is to start shifting the money to those right hands, moving that money from companies that are torturing animals, that are killing animals, to vegan and plant-based entrepreneurs who are not doing that and doing things the right way. There's a wonderful gentleman, I don't know if you know him, Jackie, Jay from Mindful Wealth. Have you?
I heard of him, yeah.
And he does something very different to me, but the same concept. He helps people move their pensions. A lot of vegans don't even realize that their pensions are invested into companies that are supporting things like animal agriculture or animal testing. They don't even know. And he helps them move their pensions and savings to green investments. And that's what he's doing. He's kind of, and he's the first one to say, oh, I like making loads of money, because I know I'm helping more and more people shift their money into companies that are not harming animals and not harming the environment and not causing deforestation. So it's that mindset of not seeing it as a good or bad thing, but seeing it as a thing that we can, steal away from the people who are using it to harm and moving it to people who will use it as a force of good.
I love that. Yeah. It's great.
Absolutely hitting the nail on the head today with everything.
Definitely. And it feels such an important gap, because there's kind of like, say you're a plant-based vegan, preferably, but a food company, and you're going to make like chicken nuggets or something like that, or vegan chicken nuggets. You're not going to like not charge anybody for them, are you? Because you've got to have the ingredients, you've got to have the stuff, you've got to have the equipment to make them. And as consumers, people are automatically going to be like, yeah, well, they're not going to go into a store and just have them for nothing, are they? Vegans are prepared to pay money for these things. But it's that sort of behind the scenes stuff where you don't necessarily have, it's all the work that goes into behind the scenes that people still need to live, like you say, for different things other than vegan food, which we are so readily able to charge and pay for, because that seems fine. But other things, maybe not
services.
So much.
I think services I think that's where the biggest, the crutch is services. And I know a lot of vegan entrepreneurs who feel like they shouldn't charge much for their services, charge much for their time. And it's like, but you're providing a service. You need to live, and not just live, you need to thrive. As I said before, you can't be 100% there for other beings on the planet when you sat there, worrying about how you're going to pay your next bill, or how you're going to pay for your kid to go to university, or, whether you're going to have enough money in your pension pot when you retire. How can you be there 100% for other beings, human and non-human, if you've got all these thoughts going on in your head? So Yeah, it's something, and I probably have lost a few, potential clients over the last few months, talking more about being, talking about profits. And, sometimes some of the language I use can be quite hard hitting. I'll say things like, you want to make profits, you want to increase your, your turnover. And I talk in business terms, which I don't hear a lot of in the vegan world. It's all very fluffy in the vegan world. So maybe I don't even know if the vegan world is ready for me. I guess I'll find out. But I seem to be doing quite well so far. So everything's going well for me right now. But we shall see over the next few months what happens. But it was a conscious effort. I did think about, softening the language a little bit. And then I thought, no, that's not what I want to do. There's already other book consultants out there, not vegan, I would have to say. They're not vegan, but there are book consultants out there who are more sort of, their language is very soft, and it's all about writing a transformational book and the journey and all that. And don't get me wrong, writing a book is transformational. It is a milestone in your life. But my goal really is to make you a bucket load of money. That's my goal. I'm not going to be ashamed to say that. I want to work with people. I just worked with a lovely lady. I think you know her, Jackie, Bobby Giudicelli. She's within Viva. You know Bobby, yes. She wasn't really able to come to a lot of the meetings all the time. But she wrote her latest book with me. She'd already written a book many years ago, and I think she said it took her about 18 or 19 months of hell. She hated it. And she went found me. She was like, oh my God, I could write a book in weeks instead of a year and a half. And I said, yeah, I'll get a book out of you in weeks. Don't worry about that. She's like, yep, not a problem. Where do I sign? So she was very, very happy to find someone that can just give her a recipe to work with, and she can just get it out of her. And now she's out there. She's got a business with her eldest son, Read the Ingredients. And what they do is they create whole food, plant-based breakfast items. Because one of the biggest issues that vegans have is, especially if you're rushing to work in the morning and you're kind of thinking, what do I eat? And you don't always have something straight away, or you've left the house without eating, and now you're eating vegan junk food, which isn't very good for you. So these are ambient products that you can just throw into a handbag or rucksack or whatever, and you can take with you. But it's whole food, it's plant-based, it's good for you, it's nourishing breakfast. And she's using the book that you wrote with me to launch that company. And I'm already know she's going to make a bucket load of money from this. And I'm not, that's what she liked working with me. I wasn't being all wishy-washy and saying, oh, well, we just want to, get your name out there, and it's going to be transformational. It's going to be a journey and all that kind of stuff. It's like, no, Bobby, I want you to go and make a bucket load of money. That's my goal for you. She's already there. She's already now looking at getting investors and people interested in it. I wanted to be a major brand in the US. She's starting in the US. Hopefully she'll become so big in the US that then eventually she'll come to the UK and maybe even Australia. That would be amazing. But she's starting on home turf at the moment. But that's what I want it to be. I want it to be as big as Oreos, for example.
Yeah,
but for all
that'd
good
be
plant-based
fantastic.
breakfast. Yeah, so I'm not ashamed of that. I think there needs to be a shift. What irritates me at the moment is there's so many companies that are now, on the one hand, I'm happy they're jumping on the vegan plant-based bandwagon and creating so many products for us vegans, which is wonderful, but they themselves are not vegan. And vegans are being left behind. I'm thinking, hang on a minute, it's us that should be getting all the money. It's us that should be getting all the glory. Why are these companies who are not even vegan but just create vegan products, why are they making more money? And again, it comes back to that mindset of we shouldn't be making a lot of money as vegans. No, BS. Utter BS. Make a bucket load of money and be very happy about it. Because think of what you can do with the money. Think of like the charities you can invest to, the non-profits you can invest into. Even if you decide you want a massive mansion, but you can make the whole thing sustainable and have zero carbon footprint. How amazing would that be? That'd be a great advert for how you can live sustainably. There's so much you can do with the money. So money's not evil. It's not evil whatsoever.
Yeah, I love that. And focusing on that point of, it's down to the individual and how they choose to act with it. And we've got I feel it's a good time to give a shout out to everybody who supports Vegan FTA, because for us, we're a non-profit and we can't do anything that we do without the support of donors and people who choose to support us through our Facebook, Patreon, or the donor box that we have through our newsletters. And that allows us to be doing activism, and we work, 70, 80 hours a week, just us two on our team, and we have more team members coming on. and we need to be out there and advocating for animals all the time. But it wouldn't be possible if we didn't have somebody backing us and making it so that, at least we can keep the power going,
Yeah.
and,
I thought those vegan chicken nuggets.
yeah, we're definitely not in the case of earning bucket loads of money at this stage. We're still scratching. But, maybe this is why we need some help from the vegan publisher. I think many more of us. And yeah,
Exactly.
I do highly recommend as well, people go check out the Vegan Business Tribe. I'll try and chuck a link in the comments in a minute. Because Lisa and David, they are fantastic, and actually he's got the same hat as me as well. I know he's got.
Oh, you've just been waiting for the opportunity to bring us out, haven't you?
Oh God, he does.
You'll find David has the same one, and so this is my grumpy hat when we're going through the Instagram feed and trying to determine if things are real sanctuaries or just people exploiting animals for views, and this is the grumpy hat that comes out to say no, these guys are exploiting, but enough silliness.
They might look good on the surface. Are you happy now?
I'm quite happy now. I have that by my desk all the time.
Gareth has a very interesting desk. We'll have to go there someday. But
oh God, the horrors of it.
But in case you hadn't guessed already, something that we love about your work is the empowerment that you offer. You allow people to see that by becoming the author of a book, you can go from a state of being frustrated, struggling to be heard, and despairing of ever getting your message and your knowledge out there to an expert, a confident advocate in your chosen field. It would be great to have you elaborate on this and how we can change the landscape of our advocacy through sharing our own stories, because we've all got a story in us, or our passions in a book.
Gosh, I could be here all day talking about this. I don't think you guys have all that amount of time. I mean, it's different parts of it. So first of all, just writing a book is an accomplishment, and that I'm amazed how many experts and entrepreneurs and downright impressive people I meet, and yet you scratch beneath the surface and there's a load of imposter syndrome there, and the kind of a bit like, I don't know how I've got here, to be honest. I mean, I even get that myself. I had a huge amounts of imposter syndrome releasing the Freedom Master Plan, which a lot of people didn't get, because they said, well, you've written 7 books before, so you're good at this. Why have you got imposter syndrome? It's like, yes, but as a ghostwriter. So no one knew that I wrote those books. My face isn't on them. This book has my face on it, and it really did feel like putting my head above the parapet. So even I went through, and I know what people go through. So when you go through that process and you'll go through imposter syndrome and you come out the other end and you have this amazing book and you start getting those 5-star reviews, and that does happen because you followed a recipe that's tried and tested. So, a lot of people say, oh, well, what if I get 1 or 2-star reviews? Well, that happens mainly because your book was meandering and didn't really deliver on the promise that you gave them on the cover. The whole point of working with someone like me is I'm giving you a tried and tested recipe. I've used the recipe 8 times now. So I've written 8 books, 7 as a ghostwriter, once as an author. And I've published 16 authors who follow the exact same recipe. And you can go and look at all their books on Amazon, and they've all get 4 and 5-star reviews. The only time they get 4-star reviews, by the way, is when they're whinging about Amazon, which really irritates me. They're like, I'm knocking 1 star off because it was 3 days late. What the hell has that got to do with me and my author? But then there's no reasoning with
you can't please everyone, can you?
It didn't look good as a doorstop, so I'm gonna rate this lower, actually.
Yes, exactly. And you're just going, what? So first of all, the first thing that happens is you really feel a sense of accomplishment, which changes the way you are. I see, like, it's almost like when I look at my authors after they publish a book, they almost seem to stand like an inch taller. Maybe it's just in my head, but they just seem to be more confident in themselves. Some of them start speaking when they told me before, oh my God, I would never speak in front of people. And then I'll get a call or a WhatsApp message, 3 weeks or 4 weeks after they publish their book. So I'm speaking in front of 100 people. I'm thinking, what happened to I'm never, ever going to speak in front of people? So there's something, they've gone through this process where they now really do believe, okay, I am pretty good. I think that comes from taking all this knowledge that's buzzing around in our heads and consolidating it into a masterpiece. There's something that makes you go, wow, I've done that. I used to do this before the pandemic when I was speaking in rooms. I would get everyone to get up on their feet, and I would say to them, okay, I'm usually speaking to business owners, entrepreneurs, experts, those kind of people. And I'll say, okay, I want you to stay standing up if you use social media for your business or your brand. And practically everyone would stay standing up. Then I'd say, I want you to stay standing up if you've got a website. Some people might sit down, especially if they're sort of like Instagram influencers and that kind of thing, and who don't have their own websites, but most people stay standing up. Then I'd say something like, okay, stay standing up if you've got business cards. And again, some people might sit down because they find business cards very passe, but most people stay standing up because they're in person at a networking event in the first place. And then I'd say, okay, I want you to stay standing up if you've written a book, if you're an author. And then you just get all this commotion and practically everyone sits down. And when there is usually an author or two in the audience, it's quite interesting how everyone else just kind of bursts into a spontaneous round of applause, which I always find interesting because I just think, imagine if you just told people that you're on LinkedIn. You're not going to get applauded for that, would you?
Yay, good for you. Yeah.
That is amazing. You created a profile. I'm so proud of you. It wouldn't happen. But people applaud you and go, wow, like you've written a book. Tell me more about a book. I mean, I literally just have to mention that, oh, I've written a book called The Freedom Mastermind. Where can I get it? And they're already on their phones out, where can I get it? They're just, even if they're not even going to buy it, they're just being nosy and they want to check it out. That never happens when you tell people you've got a website. I mean, they may go and check it out at some point, but they don't get their phone out at that point to start looking at your website. But you're telling me
it changes you. I know an author now, you know. It's like, oh, I know someone who's got a website and a blog. You know, it's like, I know an author.
Big move. So does everybody. So does 7-year-olds nowadays. Do you know what I mean? It's no big deal. So there's that. There's the confidence, and that just kind of spills out in all of the, when they start speaking to clients now, when they're speaking to donors, or when they're speaking to possible strategic partners, possible investors. They just seem to walk that little bit taller. You can see it in them. And I can be like, oh, wow, I helped create that. They just feel more confident. Then there's the other aspects that happen. So, for example, I've had a number of my clients who've then gone on to build things like programs, video courses, subscriptions, things that they've always been meaning to do for years, but been putting on the back burner. But once they've got their book out, they've kind of got the main bits of their knowledge now out in a structured format. It now doesn't take much effort to turn that and just add a little bit more to it to create a subscription program or to create a video course or what have you. So they start building all these extra things that they never even thought of. They start building all these extra income that's coming out. I've got one lady who contacted me just a few weeks ago, and she's been speaking that often now. She's now getting paid to speak. And this is a woman who swore blind to me. She hated speaking. I would never speak in front of people. But now she's actually, never mind just speaking, she's actually getting paid to speak. I have another lady who contacted me a few weeks ago, Amanda, and she's now working. She's a financial planner. She still has a really a successful financial planning business, but she's now working 1 day a week with another consultancy. And it's a network of around 3,000 women in the UK, and giving them financial awareness and how to plan for their financial future. And she now works as a consultant for that business. She never even would have thought of that. I have a funny feeling Amanda's going to start working for the government at some point in 2 to 3 years' time, advising the government on how to support women who leave. Basically, her book is all about supporting women who become financially disadvantaged because they leave work to go and have children and then come back part-time, and the ramifications over a lifetime of their pension pot, which is that she worked out that roughly the average woman in the UK retires with a fifth of the pension that the average man does, which wouldn't be a big deal if we didn't get divorced. So if we stayed with them, then it's all coming to the same place. But as we all know, you know, kids may leave the nest, and then suddenly you're thinking, I really don't like this person. I'd rather get divorced. And now you find yourself that when you get to your pensionable age, you're screwed because you got, you've got a tiny pension, all because you left work and went back part-time to have children that your guy wanted as well. It wasn't just you had them for yourself. You had, and yet he's doing well. So her book is all about helping women understand what happens to their pension and having those conversations with their partner if they're looking to have children, and so they start getting parity in their pension. But she's now working with another business which now teaches this to their networking members. So that's the crazy thing about books. I always say that not only will it open the doors that you wanted to open, it ends up opening doors that you can't even fathom right now, that you don't even know that are there to be opened. It happened to me when I wrote the first edition of my book. It came out in March of last year, did really well. But because of how well it did, I basically got dragged kicking and screaming into the vegan world. I got found by Heather Landex. You know Heather, don't you?
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, she's a lovely lady, wonderful lady. And she found out that I was vegan, and that was it. She's like, well, why aren't you working with vegans? It's like, well, I didn't say I wouldn't work with vegans. I just never, at that point, I hadn't made the two things, the two aspects of my life hadn't come together. I had been a vegan at that point for 9 years. I was very passionate vegan, very passionate for animal advocacy. But then my business was my business. It was two separate things, and never the twain should meet. That was my attitude. And then I met Heather, and then she started, annoying me into going. I would keep putting her off, but she kept annoying me until I eventually succumbed, and I went to my very first, I think it was the Monday Vegan Business Networking meeting. And then I got involved with Vegan Business Tribe. Then I got involved with Vivas. And as you know, the rest is history. I just met amazing people like you, Jackie. And I just thought, wow, these are the people that I want to work with. Why would I want to work with a standard boring now they were boring, by the way. They weren't boring before, but now they were boring in comparison. And I was like, wow, I want to work with these plant-based and vegan and ethical entrepreneurs because they make better books. They've got more incredible stories to tell. So I want to work with them. And then just earlier this year, I rebranded as a vegan publisher. Now that's a door I never even realized existed when I published the first edition of the Freedom Mass Plan. And that's the exciting thing about books. You put them out there, you kind of birth them a little bit. They're a bit like a baby that you birth. And then all these things happen that you don't even expect, and opportunities come to you. I really want to start working with sort of nonprofits and charities, because I really think writing a signature book will be able to help them attract donors and patrons and people like that. And again, that concept of money isn't evil. Let's make a bucket load of it so we can make the biggest impact possible.
Well, I think, who knows, maybe Vegan FTA may be working with the vegan publisher in the future.
Yes, we'll know where to go.
Yes.
Something that I would love to do. Obviously, my business is, it's been going for 18 months now. Well, I've been helping people publish books since 2016, but as in its current iterations, we're going for about 18 months now. But I would like to get to the stage in the next couple of years where I could start doing some pro bono work as well. That would be amazing. So, maybe 1 or 2 books a year that is funded by other clients for charities or nonprofits who can't afford my services. So that would be amazing as well. And this is what I mean about if I started to do like a lot of vegan entrepreneurs do and be like, oh, I won't charge as much for my book consultancy services. I'll charge a little bit. I'll just charge what I need just to pay my bills and keep my family happy. And that's all I'll do. And I won't charge them more. Well, guess what? I won't be able to build up this pot to be able to help nonprofits and charities. And this is what I mean about not, I'm probably sounding a bit like a broken record now, but trying to think of money as not a good or a bad thing. It's just a conduit. And if we can harness the power of it, I know what I'm worth. I'm going to sound a little bit arrogant here, but I know I'm bloody good at writing books. I know I'm bloody good at teaching people how to write books. So guess what? I'm going to charge for that because the money I'm making from that is going to go to lots of great things. So I'm not going to, I'm not going to feel ashamed for charging what I charge, because you get what you pay for ultimately.
Yeah, it's a really good point you bring up as well about being able to do like things like the pro bono. Like currently, we're very lucky to be working with Motion Manor, who are we're in the process of making an animation with them.
Who Mitali actually told us about.
Yeah, Mitali was the one
amazing. And that's where I want to be. He's a little bit ahead of me at the moment. His business has been going for a little bit longer than mine. And that's what he's been able to do, because he charges what he's worth. And he's not doing the whole, I shouldn't really charge, especially vegan and plant-based people. I'll charge them just, the absolute minimum just to pay my overheads and that's it. He's not doing that. He's like, well, he's bloody good at what he does. So he charges what he should charge for someone of that caliber to make videos for you. And that's why he's now been able to create a pot so you can now help people like you pro bono. You know, so this is what I mean about don't think of money as evil. It's a good thing. We need to take it away from the evil people. That's what we need to be doing.
Absolutely.
I think it's a great thing for all of us, any of our entrepreneurs out there, and anybody going to start off an entrepreneur, to think about that. And have it so that then if you do want to do free work for folks, we'll make sure you're covering everything else, and you are in that position in where you have the I was going to say wealth, not necessarily wealth, but the bucket load of money, so that you can do well and then give that wellness elsewhere. And it's really interesting how we're sort of how you mentioned earlier about this whole sort of that privilege sort of element to it, and it got me thinking about that too, just how this all works. We might have the privilege to give our wellness then, as opposed to right now where we're struggling, and so many people have different struggles. But I think I think I might jump and steal your question, because I think we've answered my one.
Fine.
But some of you might know Jackie and I are authors already ourselves, and we went through mainstream publishing, and I could go on a big old grumpy ramble about that. I won't do that now because it gets me angry.
Now, if you're going to be grumpy again.
I need my hat on,
don't start.
Heard and gur, these darn publishers and not making any money, I can throw my hat down in a rage about that. But basically, you're not going to make like the money out of the book, though. And
stick to the question, because it might make more sense in your hat, darling.
Should I wear the hat for the question?
No, just stick to the point that you're trying to get to with your question. It's early here. I'm sorry, guys.
Early here. I'm a bit bonkers, so we should elaborate on, which I'm sure our viewers will be eager to know about, is the enormous profit would-be authors dream about with their books, or what they might be dragging in, or perhaps more realistically, what 99.9% of authors have, which is the lack of. This year, we ourselves, we really knocked it out of the park, and we soared to new heights with our cookbook royalties, which was a whole 30 cents each, 60 cents between us.
This is for a sold-out book as well.
Don't spend it all at once.
But, this is the thing. Don't be disheartened, folks, because as we've just been talking about, the important things to remember is that the book is just the beginning. In Mitali's bestselling Freedom Master Plan, she's already helping people to make it more than just an ebook, a soft cover, or a hardback. And it's proven time and time again that this is possible. So, like on your website, you talk about leveraging books. So, what do we mean by leveraging books? And how is the Freedom Master Plan helping to open those doors and hopefully the bank accounts for vegans?
Well, I think it's just that understanding that there are I see two book industries that are working side by side, and they are two different worlds. And I think a lot of people aren't aware of that. They kind of see the book industry as this one big industry. And, that they put a book out there, and then that in itself should be the big money maker. And as you found out, the royalties are paltry. You're not going to really, it's not even like a month's worth of wages, more like a day's wage, if that, in a whole year. You're not going to make a lot of money from that. I mean, you never know. I mean, look at, the lady who wrote 50 Shades of Grey. I mean, she'll say the opposite. She's like, well, I wrote something that's not even all that good. She actually admits that it's not even all that good. She said this. I couldn't even finish the first book. I was just like, oh my God, the writing is terrible. I can't finish it. But she's done incredibly well. She sells so many copies of a book, and then now they've been made into movies as well. So she sold the rights to a book. She's done well. But the reason we talk about it, what's her name again? E.L. James, that's it. The reason we talk about her is because it's so unusual. If that was the norm, we wouldn't be talking about it, because everyone would be doing it. The truth is, the average book sells barely more than a few hundred copies in its lifetime, not even a year, in its lifetime. So if you're thinking of making a load of money and being able to retire or do loads of, just put the book out there, that will make so much money that you can now spend all of your time with animal charities and nonprofits. I wish that was the case. I really do wish that was the case, but it's not. It doesn't exist. That really doesn't exist for most people. So it's kind of thinking of the book industry as two very separate industries. You've got the traditional book industry, and this is the world inhabited by traditional publishers. And in that industry, the book is, well, they're trying to make the book the money maker. So the idea is you sell as many copies of your books as possible, and that's how you make your money. It's a tough industry, because think of how much you can charge for a book. Most people grumble. I was going to say, Gareth, you'd put on your hat, certainly, I'm sure. If I asked you to spend more than, say, $10 or £10 on a paperback book, I bet you'd grumble. You'd be like, why am I spending more than, it's just book, you know? And an ebook, I bet you'd put your hat on if it's anything more than $5 or £5. You'd be like, but it's an electronic download. It's not even sent to my house. So why on earth am I spending more than $4 or $5 or pounds here in the UK for an ebook? So now think of how many units you need to sell.
Yeah, it's
If
huge.
say you just want to make $5,000 a month, which isn't even all that much money, and say you didn't even need to pay Amazon or a traditional publisher or anything like that, you took all the profits, you would still have to shift 5,000 units a month, 5,000 copies of your book a month. It's actually, many times that, because you have to pay off your traditional publisher or Amazon or whatever platform you're using. You have to pay printing costs and everything. But even if you take all of that out, you're now living in some sort of utopia where people just do this for their health and you just make all the profits, 100% profits. You would still have to sell 5,000 copies of your book every single month to make a living. It's just not feasible. So what I operated is it's a separate book industry that is working in tandem with the traditional book industry. And that is where the book is being used as a clever sales and marketing tool. So the money really isn't in the book. I mean, I sell my book, but I also give my book away a lot of the times. I sent it to you, Jackie, for example. I was like, oh, I'm going to be on Jackie's show. I didn't say, right, Jackie, well, do you fancy going on Amazon.au and buying my book? I was like, no, this is a lovely lady. I love vegan FTA. I'm just going to send a copy of my book, because I know that, with all the amazing people that who are going to now know about me because I've been on your show, the money's going to come much later on when people find out about me. They see the show and they think, I need to write a book. Let me just call this woman and find out what's going on. That's where the money is. I don't care that I've spent, I don't know how much I spent getting it over to New Zealand. You're based in New Zealand, correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, but you
that's
use
as far as you can send a book.
Amazon AU that you use, I think. New Zealand doesn't have their own Amazon, I think.
I think, we have to use the Aussie
We
one.
kind of do, but it doesn't really,
It doesn't work. There's no point. But it didn't matter to me, because that's the attitude you got to have. And all my clients who've done incredibly well, that's the attitude. They're after working with me, they became very aware that, so there's two different book industries, and I need to be in the sales and marketing industry. It's like, yes, your book is really, it's just a very clever sales and marketing tool. And when I say it's clever, I mean it flies under the sales radar. Think of all the things, like your website, brochures, business cards. These are very obvious sales material. Most people push away from anything that's obviously sales. You give somebody a book and it flies under their radar. They kind of think you've given them a gift. And they're thinking, wow, you're giving me the gift of education. This is awesome. I've given my book to people and they've said, thank you. And they've then got their wallet out saying, I should pay you. I'm like, no, it's for you. Just take it. And you should see their faces. Like I've given them like a Christmas gift or something. Imagine if I sent them to my website, or I gave them a business card or a brochure. Do you think they'd be like, oh my God, thank you so much?
Here's a link. This is for you.
I think it's more like when you get given socks at Christmas, then, isn't it? It's that sort of like, oh, yes.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, yeah, thanks for this.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, how far do I need to walk so they don't see me when I put it into the bin? Do you know what I mean? It's a completely different thing. But essentially, what your book is doing is selling your programs, your products, your services, whatever, your charity, your non-profit, whatever it is that you're doing. It's letting people understand your story, why you do what you do, and selling what you do. So it's just like your website or a business card, but far more clever than any of those things could ever be. I'm not saying please don't get rid of your website or business. You still need those things. But what I'm saying is, in conjunction with everything that you've already got, the book is going to be the most clever sales and marketing tool that you'll have at your disposal. And that's what I use it. I use it to send to clients to get them interested in working with me. I've sent them to affiliate partners. I've sent them to strategic partners. I've been asked to speak at VegFest. And I sent the organizer a copy of my book to impress me. Like, okay, she really knows what she's talking about. Then she sent me a book. So I use it as a marketing tool. I'm not sat there thinking, how much money am I making from my book? I do make a little bit of money from a book because it's on Amazon and people can go and buy it. That all goes straight away to a charity anyway. So I'm not even thinking about how much money I make from the book. I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on what the book does for me and position me as the vegan publisher, the person you go to if you're a vegan, ethical, plant-based entrepreneur, and if you want to write a nonfiction book. That's what I'm focused on, and that's where I'm making the money, not from the book itself. So that's
that Trojan horse.
Yes, it really is. Although that sounds a bit terrible, though, doesn't it? Sounds like he's tricking.
I suppose it's a wooden horse, the Trojan horse. So that's why I
love
that
Trojan horse with glass panes so you can see in it. I'd prefer that because then that almost seems like it's like you're tricking. You're not tricking people into working with you. In fact, if anything, your book is probably the piece of content that gives you really allows you to lay your soul bare and say, this is why I do what I do. This is my mission. This is my backstory and how I got to where I got to. Think of how long a blog post is or a LinkedIn post. Not much. But a book, the average nonfiction book is somewhere between 30 to 50,000 words. That's more words than you're ever going to have on a blog post or on a website or certainly on your business card or anything like that. So you're actually laying yourself bare. But at the same time, you're getting people interested in who you are, what you do, your mission. And that's where the money comes in.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Absolutely. And some people can spend hours, like someone else I know, creating this wonderful blog or social media post that should stand the test of time, but it doesn't. I think I've heard you mention in other interviews that, you could compile, you could craft a book from social media posts that are absolute gold, that shouldn't be lost, that are really here to teach people something. And people don't realize, because so much is done online these days. It's like, oh, well, this is in my head, this is in my heart, I've got to get it out, it could make a difference. And yeah, for 5 minutes it will. We're not all lucky enough to go viral.
Well, it's very ephemeral, isn't it? That's the thing with online content. It's here, there, then it's gone. There's a lot of other stuff that's come up now, and now they've moved on. There's something that is more, it's more static with a book, even with an electronic book. Certainly if you can get a paperback book into someone's house. That's why I'm a big fan of whenever I'm wanting to get clients or strategic partners or wow somebody into giving me the stage to speak at, I send them a hard version of my book. Because there's something very special about people. First of all, people don't throw away books. It feels almost blasphemous throwing away a book. Have you noticed, like, if you have old books that you don't even want to read, but you can't bear to put in the bin, so you start thinking about what you're going to do? Yeah, you start thinking,
I have books with
I can give them away to people, or you start thinking of charities that you can give them to, and then they can sell them on. And it just feels wrong to put a book into the bin. It just feels. The concept feels really weird. It's like and this is something that's quite interesting. It's the same in all cultures, because there's certain things you find stick in one culture but doesn't work in another culture. But when it comes to books, it's worldwide. There is a reverence for books in terms of it gives you knowledge. I mean, think of like what the Nazis were doing with their book burnings. That's where it comes from. That belief that books are so good and they can be so knowledgeable they can even corrupt people. So we now need to burn them because we don't want these people to be corrupted, by alternative ways of thinking. That's how revered books are. So if you can get a hard copy into someone's house, chances are it's going to stick around there and going to stay there for a very long time. But even with an electronic book, such as a Kindle book, I've noticed, I've asked a number of people who use Kindle, and they've still got, I think it's because you can have up to 5,000 books on an average Kindle. They tend to still have the book, and then they're going through their books, and your book will turn up again and be like, oh, yeah. Even if they haven't even read it all, they'll go, oh, yeah, I need to. That's that lady who did that thing that I was interested in. So again, you come back to it in a way that, you know, a LinkedIn post or a Facebook post or an Instagram image, it's here and then it's gone. You can't even find it after that. It's disappeared under a load of other images and posts that have turned up. So yeah, there's something very ephemeral about social media and online content in general, and something that's opposite when it comes to books. So you stay top of mind with people. I've had people that I've sent a book to over a year ago, didn't hear a peep from them. And then suddenly out of the blue, they've just sent me a message saying, I'm ready to write my book now. I actually came across your book and I realized I really need to, it gave me the kick up the arse that I need to go and do it. Now that would, no one's ever contacted me a year later and say, I found a LinkedIn post from a year ago. So finally
exactly
to write the book, I'd be like, what, really? I couldn't even find my own LinkedIn post from a year ago, never mind you. Do you know what I mean? So there is something, you know, magical that happens with a book. So yeah, I think that's why I specialized in books, because before I became, you know, a publisher, I was a ghostwriter, but I also was a copywriter. So I was writing emails and landing pages and sales pages and adverts and all kinds of business content. So really, I could have specialized in anything, or I could have been a jack of all trades. I could have decided to create a consultancy where either I teach people to write their own content. And maybe that will be in the cards at some point. But the reason why I specialize in books is, as I just spent most of the summer of 2020, I was bored. It was the pandemic. There also weren't allowed to go anywhere. And I started to reconnect with a lot of my old clients. And I started to ask them, what is the piece of content that made the biggest difference in your business? And they all kept coming back. It was the book that you wrote for me, not the sales page or the emails. I'm not saying those things are not necessary. You still need to be on social media. You still need web content. You need all those things. But the thing that made the biggest difference to them in terms of how they position themselves and then the opportunities they were able to get was the book. And that's why I thought, okay, how do I make the biggest impact for a business owner? Get them to write a book. And that's what the thing is about.
There's so much in this book. And like one thing I love about one of the things that you teach as well is like everything that you've got here, everything that people can learn, it's not a massive volume.
Yeah.
And the same as Dr. Akil Taher, who we, like you said, we interviewed recently about his wonderful book, Open Heart. That's not a hefty tome. It's everything that he needs to say, everything in your message. You know, people think they have to write hundreds and hundreds of pages. And
oh God, no! Please don't do that to the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, my pages is not nice. No, it's something I always say to all of my clients. You can't do that to people. There's two kinds of book reading that happens. There's, when I've even analyzed this. Did you know that when people are reading nonfiction books, or these kinds of business or how-to or self-help kind of books, the average adult reading age drops down to 12 to 14 years old?
Wow.
Yeah. They're reading in a completely different way to the way they read fiction. The same adult reading fiction is reading differently to how they read these books. When they're reading these books, they're reading at pace. They don't even realize they're doing it, but they're reading at pace. They're usually glancing. They're not picking up every single word that's written, because you've promised them a solution to a problem on the front. So, for example, my book is all about how to use your book as a business owner to take your business to the next level. Well, guess what you're going to be doing? You're going through my book at speed, because you're like, come on, Mitali, hit me with this. I want to know how to use a book to position myself as an authority and take my business to the next level. Whereas when you're reading fiction, you're savoring it. The aim isn't to get to the end as soon as possible. While you're doing it, the journey is the pleasurable side of a fiction book. You're building a world in your mind. You're building the characters in your mind. You take time over it. You read these books in a completely different way. And I've seen these huge books that go on for 300 pages. And I'm just thinking, I think the author thought that would give them more authority by having a huge tome of a book. People are not happy with it. If you look at the reviews that people leave on places like Goodreads or Amazon, they usually say something like, really good book, could have been done in 100 pages. That's not a good review. You're wasting people's time. You want to give them what they're looking for, which is the solution to the problem that you advertised on your book blurb and your cover. So I would say my book, I think, is only about 38,000 words. I would say 30 to 40,000 is your sweet spot. I do allow up to 50,000 if that person has a lot to say and it's not just filler. I can't stand filler. I can't stand people just putting stuff in there just to make up the pages. That's not what it's, because you have to respect the reader and their time. And this is how I'm able to get 4 and annoyingly 4 stars, but mostly 5-star reviews for my authors when they publish on Amazon, because they are giving everything that person needs, that reader needs, and nothing superfluous. And people respect that because you're respecting their time.
I heard you say in an interview that, the difference, and this is the reason, why I think, sorry, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but, the main reason why you work with non-fiction authors as compared to fiction authors is, you're helping them to get their message out there in whatever that message is. But also the difference between fiction and non-fiction is that, non-fiction readers are there to learn something. And you're giving them the information, whereas as fiction, you're just, putting your feet up, relaxing, you're being transported into another world. But non-fiction is your genre because, they're helping people get their message out so that, readers of non-fiction, they want to learn something about their chosen subject, whatever book they're picking up. Is that right?
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, I would say, I've now since met a lot of awesome vegan fiction authors, and they are teaching. They're doing it sort of under the radar kind of way. So they're getting people to write, or sometimes they're writing children's books or teen books. And I was just over this weekend, I was at an event where I dressed up as Courage the Vegan Mermaid, which is a superhero in one of Susan Hargreaves' books, and she was a vegan fiction author. And that book is for teenagers and preteens, I would say. So there is learning within fiction. Certainly there is learning within fiction, but that's done in a softer way. It's done through story. Whereas what I'm doing is, my goal really is to position vegan business owners as the premier business owners. I started to get really annoyed. I think I just said this before a few minutes ago, where, some of the biggest vegan brands out there now are owned by non-vegans. And that irritates me, because I just think, well, why? That shouldn't be the case. It should be the vegan business owners who are the premier brands, because they're the ones who started the movement in the first place. And now all these other people are jumping on board. On the one hand, it's great because it's creating more, I spoke about this before, the more viable alternatives you give people, most people tend to make the right choice. So on the one hand, it's great, but because of this belief that, we shouldn't really be making loads of money, we've got these other brands owned by non-vegans that are coming in and taking big slices of the pie. And I just think that's not fair. So the reason I like working with mainly experts and entrepreneurs is because I know they will understand that this book isn't all about making a ton of money from the book. The book is a sales and marketing tool for their existing business, or perhaps a new business that they're getting to. For example, Bobby Giudicelli, I was talking about earlier, this is a new brand that she's built with her eldest son. And the book is fueling that. So it's either a new business you're getting into or an existing business that you want to amplify. I would love to at some point work with fiction authors, but I don't have any experience of writing fiction. That's the issue. I could definitely help fiction authors regarding editing, publishing, design, typesetting, all of these things, but I can't actually help them with the writing process because it's something I've never done. So that's why I mainly focus with nonfiction, and also because I just want to amplify those business owners.
Absolutely. I think that's something, sorry.
No, you go.
I think it's something we should touch on, actually, that we've mentioned about imposter syndrome and things like that. But a lot of people, they think, I'd love to write a book, but, I don't know what would I write about? B, I can't write to save myself. B, C, what about editing? I'm no good at spelling or grammar. And, we have so many limiting beliefs that stop us from writing that book in the first place. Even if we have a gem of an idea that we think that people would absolutely love, if only we could make it happen. And that's a great part of what you do as well, isn't it? It doesn't matter if you can't spell or you're rubbish at grammar. If I'd love for you to sort of talk a bit about what drives you and what helps everybody, even with these beliefs, be successful and become authors.
Well, I would say, first of all, imposter syndrome is actually a good thing. You may not believe it when you're feeling it. It feels awful. So, but I always say be careful what you wish for, because a lot of people say, wouldn't it be great if I did have imposter syndrome and I could just write a book and it'd be easy? If it was that easy, everyone would be doing it. I'm old enough to remember the .com bubble. And I remember when if you were an accountant or a lawyer and you had a website back in 2001, you did so well. Even if the website was terrible, you did incredibly well because your competitors didn't have a website. You were the point of difference. And then guess what happened? Everyone had websites. And now it's like you just have to have one. No one takes you seriously as a business owner if you don't have a website. So now it's no longer a point of difference. If writing a book was that easy, everyone would be doing it. So be careful what you wish for. Don't expect it to be easy because it's a good thing. It's a good thing because it means your competitors will probably just go, oh, that seems like too much effort, too much hassle. I've got imposter syndrome. I just won't do it. If you can push through that, you can be the point of difference now. A lot of my clients are the point of difference. You know, Amanda, how many financial planners write a book? I doubt if it's any more than 1 or 2% in the entire of the UK. So she's a point of difference now. She's now an expert amongst financial planners, specifically when it comes to women's financial planning. And that's how she wants to position herself. So this is what I'm talking about. It's all about understanding that you want to be a point of difference. To be a point of difference, you have to be extraordinary. So you kind of have to get over the imposter syndrome and actually be thankful for it, be grateful for it, because and understand that's going to be the thing that stops your competitors, but hopefully it won't stop you. And that's what will make you different to your competitors. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is all the other stuff. I always say you're worrying about something that there are people to do that. For example, grammar and spelling, there are these incredible creatures called editors. Some of the best authors out there are dyslexic. So that's good. I will say, if you're worried about technical stuff, you're worrying about the wrong thing. It's a bit like worrying how you're going to put a website together. But you're not worrying about the content of the website. You're worrying about plugins and you're worrying about computer language. There are incredible people out there who can do that stuff for you. What people can't do is give you inspiration. That's the thing that even I can't do. As good as I am as a book consultant, you have to be the sort of person who's gone through something. And the wonderful thing is if you're a vegan or plant-based or ethical entrepreneur, you already have the story in you. So that's what makes it, I love working with these people. But I can't give you, if you're boring and you don't have a story, I can't help you. I don't know, you've got to give me something to work with, you know? That's what I got. Everything else, I've got a system for that. I have a process that shows you how to research your audience to find exactly what the book needs to be about. So that way you can get rid of imposter syndrome before you've even written a single word. Because one of the things that really gestates imposter syndrome people while they're writing a book is that feeling of, oh, is this really what my audience wants? Maybe I'm going off on a tangent here. Maybe this is wrong. Maybe they want something else. And that's what stops you. Imagine knowing what they want before you even start writing your book or even planning your book. So that's going to completely get rid of imposter syndrome for you. And I've got steps that shows you how to systematically poll your audience and find out exactly what they want. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the writing thing. Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of a secret here now. None of my clients write their books. They dictate their books. So I show them a process on how to plan out their book. They mind map their book out on software that I provide for them. And then they go and just dictate their book because they know what they're going to say. The reason why most people can't dictate their book is they're thinking about their book. Think about if I told you right now, if I said, Gareth, I want you to speak 100 words on horses. And I said, 1, 2, 3, go. You'd be like, oh my God. Horses, four-legged creatures. You know, you couldn't. There'd be lots of ums, ahs. That's why people can't dictate their book. But imagine if you had a process where you'd already planned out your book, you'd mind mapped your book out, so you know exactly all the little bits and pieces that you need to say. Now you've got that. Say I gave you bullet points on horses beforehand, and I told you to now speak 100 words on horses. I bet you'd be able to do it. You may have a couple of ums and ahs, but I bet you'll be able to do it because you had a bullet point list of what you're going to say about horses. Well, that's what my clients do. They mind map everything out, and then they actually dictate their book using a dictation service. So that whole sort of writing imposter syndrome, that gets banished as well. And then all the old sort of grammar and spelling. That's why we have editors. These are incredible creatures. That's what they do. They're introverted creatures. They hate talking to people. They hate mingling. They like going into words and looking at the detail and making a word shine. They actually grumble if you're too good at writing because you don't give them anything to do.
Mhm.
So I'm just like, don't worry about that. We've got people who will polish your manuscript and make it sound amazing. So the one thing you need to bring to me is that story, that inspiration, the why you do what you do. That I can't give you, unfortunately. That is the one thing. I've had people come to me, boring people who I've just said, I don't know what I'm going to do with that person because their story is boring. So that is the one thing I can't go anywhere with, you know. So if you can give me that raw ingredient of inspiration and story and mission, which I know you have, if you're a vegan or plant-based or ethical entrepreneur, you already have that in abundance. The rest, quit worrying about it. That's my job.
Wow. Well, hopefully this is a great Kickstarter for anyone in our audience there. And I see we've got a couple of authors here.
Suli's joining us this
yeah.
morning.
Yes.
Amelia as well in New Zealand.
We've also
Hi,
got someone on YouTube under the name of Antibreeder1M. I see that they've been, you know, they love vegan publishers, but they've been rejected quite a few times. And you must know that this happens a lot. How many times was it for Eat, Pray, Love? It was
Elizabeth Gilbert. I think she got 48 rejection letters before she hit the big time.
Yeah, so there's going to be still a lot of rejections, but hopefully like this time as well, maybe we've got some more ideas, and maybe Mitali is the vegan publisher who could help
the one
you.
that you need to talk to, I think.
Yeah, and for everyone here.
With vegan publishers, so they're based in the US and they're a traditional publisher. So although they're a non-profit, I should say, so with traditional publishers, they're making money from selling copies of the book. From what I know about vegan publishers is they are a non-profit, but they operate like a traditional publisher. In other words, if they say yes to your manuscript, they will be paying for your editing and your design, your typesetting, your publishing and everything. So they need to feel that they can sell your book to as many people as possible to make back the money that they've spent on all those things. So what I would say to Antibreeder1M, I think I've said that right.
Yeah, I think that was...
I was an IM or a 1M, I wasn't sure. Is that, you know, if you really want to go down the traditional publishing route, and if you go vegan publishers, you go down the traditional publishing route, is you need to show them that you already have an audience that they can actually promote to, and they can make back the money very quickly that they're going to spend on you. Does that make sense? If you don't have that, that's probably why they're hesitating. That's a key thing, by the way. A lot of people assume that their manuscript is being rejected because it's not good enough. It could be that. I don't know what your manuscript is like, Antibreeder1M, so I don't know how good it is. It could be that, but it also could be that it's a fantastic book, but they just don't feel that there's enough of a market. They don't know. I'm not saying there isn't enough of a market, but they're not aware of the people who would be able to buy your book. And they, even though they're a non-profit, they still have to run a non-profit as a business. So they have to sit there and think, if we commission this manuscript, how long is it going to take for us to get that money back? So then we can go and commission another manuscript. Yeah. If they feel it's going to take them a long, long time, to, you know, a lot of effort to sell your book, to make the money back that they spent originally on editing, design, publishing, etc., then they're going to reject your manuscript. So keep that in mind. It may not even be your manuscript. J.K. Rowling was rejected somewhere between 11 and 30 plus times, depending on where you speak to. That was the very first Harry Potter book, which I think we can all agree is a classic. Yes. So it's sometimes got nothing to do with how good your script is, and everything to do with the fact that they feel that they can't find, it's not that there isn't an audience, they can't find the audience. And this is also why you get all of these annoying books from reality stars who barely can string two sentences together when you see them on TV, and yet they're the author of 6 books. And the reason why is they already have an audience. They're an influencer on Instagram, people hanging on their every word. So then they get book deals, even though they're some of the most boring people. And the rest of us are going, why is that person a 6 times author? You know, they're not interesting. And yet they're an author. So keep that in mind. It doesn't always have to do with how good your script is. It could be a really, really good script.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Like yeah, that's a fantastic point to have. And just to speak from my personal experience with our publisher and stuff, I would definitely advise that folks, if you can, use someone like Mitali, or if you can, self-publish, because there's a lot of these things. We did our vegan cookbook sold out, and they only did it in the first place because it was part of a 2-book deal. They didn't really see the market. Then there was a test for them, putting their foot in the water to try it out. But we sold out within a couple of months, and they still didn't do a reprint of it.
Despite people trying to get the book over and over and over.
And this was the thing, because they weren't a vegan publisher. And so then they didn't understand the vegan market. If you go to any of your bookstores, I'm sure it'll be the same around the world. There's vegan, unfortunately keto as well, but usually loads of vegan books and like plant-based books at the moment. They're one of the big trends in cookbooks. But, we were ahead of that curve here in New Zealand. We had this sold out book, but they just didn't feel it was worth the investment and the risk, to keep on with it. And so hopefully in the future, we might be doing something through Vegan FTA.
Yes, watch his space for that.
Yeah, watch his space for that, away from all that. But I might be wrong in this. This is just my experience of it, but I would personally advocate for trying to do self-publishing if possible, or go through someone like Mitali, who's really looking out for your best interest, not looking out for necessarily
yes, not
theirs.
an experiment. Exactly. I think we were a bit of an experiment, and it also comes.
I was going to say, working with someone like me, what it does is like it takes away that whole. I'm not sat there thinking about, how much money can I make from the book? It just takes away all of that. The thing with me is you pay for my services, you pay to work with my team, and then you have a book that's your asset. You own it entirely. No one else owns it. You don't have to go cap in hand to somebody to ask for, if you want to make changes. It's your tool to do your sales and marketing tool, or your advocacy tool, or whatever you want it to be. It's your tool. And that way there's no, I don't want to badmouth traditional publishers, because there's a lot of fantastic traditional publishers out there. But just getting into bed with a traditional publisher, it is like getting into bed with somebody. You might love them in the beginning, but in a few years' time, you might want to divorce them. And you're kind of stuck with them now. That's the thing. When you self-publish, it's yours. It's your thing. It's like your website. Imagine if you wanted to make a change on your website and you had to go and ask permission from somebody to change something on your own website. That would annoy you, right? You just say, I want to add a new blog post, or I want to change the heading here, or I want to add a new image. You should be able to just go and do that and not have to ask any permission. That's what self-publishing does, That it gives you that freedom to do whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah, we can absolutely vouch for that. Being the same, we've also been the same. You think that you signed this contract and everything's really exciting, and then your experience with the publisher has not turned out to be as you hoped, or like you say, you don't have that freedom to do what you want. And as you mentioned, you write a book, and opportunities come from that book that, when you go with a traditional publisher and you're locked into a contract, you're then not able to take, which is really, really pants, to say the least. So,
I had one lady who wrote a book with a major publisher, and a non-fiction book, and she wanted to create a program from it. And they said, yeah, you can create a program from it, but they wanted or more than half of what she made from the program.
Mm.
And she said, well, no, this is my program. It's like, you're making this. Our deal was for the book. But they're like, yeah, but you're using the content from the book. It's like, yes, but that's my content. I created that. You didn't create that. But they didn't. They wanted, and then they stopped it. They said, no, you can't create a program from this book because it's our book. So now she has to wait until a contract runs out, which hopefully will be around this time next year. So then she can finally create a program. Whereas she could have created a program now and be making money from it.
No, it's
there's definitely pros and cons to everything, isn't there?
Yeah, so be very, very careful, folks, before you do jump on with a traditional one. It may be the perfect fit, but just read those contracts, make sure that it is going to be the right fit for you and what you're creating.
Just reminded me something, Gareth. So if you go and get a copy of my book, you can then go onto my site and download. Thank you, Gareth. I should pay you for this, really, shouldn't I?
Oh yes, well we did talk about
it. Once you get the book, you get a couple of bonus gifts, and one of those gifts that you can download. You go to my site, You put in your Amazon order number, and then you can download a couple of gifts from me. And one of it is, it's like a 50+ PDF called 21 questions you need to ask a non-fiction publisher before you sign a contract. You go through that. By the end of it, if you ask all these questions, you'll know exactly what you're getting into with a publisher. My goal with that PDF was I was just sick and tired of hearing from people like you, Jackie, telling me about these horrible experiences that you've had, because it's not your fault. You just don't know what you don't know. You don't know what questions to ask a publisher. You ask these 21 questions, and you either have a fantastic publisher who 100% is behind you, has got your back, or you can just not sign anything and realize, no, this isn't the right publisher for me. So I would urge you, if you're thinking of using any kind of publisher, whether you're using someone like me, a hybrid publisher. I class myself as a hybrid publisher because what I do is I help you self-publish, but I help you publish to the standards of a major traditional publisher. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. So that's a hybrid publisher. Or you could just choose to go by yourself, do your own thing and just self-publish, or you can choose a traditional publisher. But whatever you're thinking of doing, get the 21 questions guide, and whoever you're thinking of working with, whether it's a hybrid publisher like me or a traditional publisher or whoever, go through those questions. And I promise you, by the end of it, you'll know whether this publisher has got your best interests at heart or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was going to say, I would definitely say, as someone who's been down that route together, I would never, ever, given the opportunity to do a book again, I would never go as a vegan with someone who is not a vegan publisher, because we're not an experiment. We're nobody's, toe in the water to see how things go. We deserve more than that as vegans, as vegan writers, as vegans authors. We're nobody's bloody experiment. It's just, it's crap, quite honestly. So I would never go with a publisher again that wasn't vegan.
I could put my hat on, and I have got so many grumbles, but I won't broadcast them live on air.
Have to be surgically removed from your head, really, wouldn't it?
It's a whole other podcast, isn't it? Learn from us what not to do.
Yeah. Like we've made many mistakes over the years, and unfortunately, like we didn't get to meet Mitali until well, Jackie, you've been in correspondence for a while. We've only just got to meet today, and it's just been so lovely to finally have this opportunity. But I know
you wouldn't have your grumpy hat on, would you, if we'd met Mitali first?
No, I'd have my happy hat on, which I don't have round at the moment because I'm too grumpy most of the time. But I know where we're heading with the future, at least now, and hopefully for all of our audience too. Once again, the link is in the description at the moment, and also in the comments. Also down below, I do believe there's a link to thefreedommasterplan.com. Where you can find this book and more about it and everything else that we've been talking about. But hopefully you've all got that little spark there where you're thinking, yeah, well, this could be my book. And the Trojan horse was a bad metaphor for it. But I think, the landmark,
it wouldn't be you without coming up with some kind of no, would it, in us?
Oh, yeah. It's always.
I do like it, but it's just, it is a Trojan horse to a certain extent. But I just thought, Trojan horse wasn't very good. It was the Greeks being deceptive, really, wasn't it? I thought, well, I only want vegans to be deceptive about it, So that's why I said, like a glass Trojan horse. Let's call it a glass Trojan horse. It's kind of what it is.
It's one of those wonderful things, and really just gives you that landmark. Now, I really look forward to the day when we go to the charity shops, which we quite often go to. That's where a lot of the old books end up. I look forward to the day to finding our book in the charity shop one day, because I know that then it's actually done its cycle, it's gone through, and it's been places, it's going to meet new people. But yeah, having that just structure, that's something there that people can connect to you, and then find the wider world of whatever else you're doing, whatever business that is, organization, whatever you're doing, whatever your advocacy is for the animals, hopefully we can find a connection point there through manifesting something like this in a book. And we should probably look to wrapping this up, because
we've got poor Mitali sitting in the dark over in England now. So.
I don't think I should put the light. It's getting dark. It really is. We have been talking for a while, haven't we? Gosh, we have. And Isha's still here. If you want to see Isha, she's been patiently sitting down here thinking, are you going to come and cuddle me? Why are you still talking to these people on the other side of the planet, aren't you?
Look at her little face.
I know, she's not happy. She's all like, this was meant to be a half-hour interview. Why are you still talking? These people are lovely. That's why we're talking to them.
Thank you for being a wonderful feline activist, Isha, and creating what Mitali calls herself as a vegan monster. You've unleashed the vegan monster in this wonderful lady.
You did create a vegan monster, didn't you? Didn't you, baby?
What would you like to say, seeing as I keep interrupting you today?
Stop interrupting me. No. No, I just thank you both for coming. It's just been so lovely. One last thing is just, for folks visiting your website, I understand that you you offer a free 15-minute consultation for people like us that have done the wrong thing before. Yeah. Consultation, and would you just like to share a little bit about this and any other services that our folks checking out can go and see on your site?
I'm just going to make sure she's going to sit. You're going to sit here quietly, or you're going to moan at me when I start speaking? You're going to be quiet? I think that's a yes.
No.
So yeah, the consultation is really just to help. I was getting so many people who are just stuck. Either they've started to write a book, or they've even finished writing a book. I had one lady just last week who'd been speaking to a publisher, but the publisher is now changing what they agreed to a certain royalty, but now they're changing it. And how she navigates that. So it's basically my gift really to vegan and plant-based entrepreneurs. Whether you've got a book idea or perhaps you've already got a book out there, but no one's really told you how to leverage it correctly. I can get on a quick 15-minute chat and get you unstuck quite quickly. I think because I'm Jackie will vouch for this. I'm pretty terrible at most other things. I'm not very good at I'm the sort of person that burns water when I'm trying to cook, so I'm just terrible at most things. But one thing I am good at, and that's probably why I maybe come across as a little bit arrogant, but I think it's, I just know that I'm good at it, and that is books. I know what it takes to write a good book. I know what it takes to leverage a book. Look at what my book has done for me, and getting me out into the world in a very short space of time. So I can certainly help. So that's really my gift. Get on a call with me. Let's get you unstuck and let's get you moving. I was watching one of your other episodes a couple of days ago. What's the name of it? Andrew Alexander, who's doing creating a vegan world. And, he was talking about, how to get, do you want to go down, baby? See, that was it. She's gone. There we go. She doesn't want to stick around for too long. And he was talking about, even vegans don't even know what other vegans are doing sometimes. And it's by all of us being connected and being very aware of all, I talked about this earlier, prongs of attack. Every revolution that's ever happened, it didn't just happen just because of one or two things. It was a number of different things coming together, creating that perfect storm, if you will, that creates that revolution. And that's what veganism is. We need to create that perfect storm, and it's going to be many prongs of attack. And there's so many things we don't even know that other people are doing. I was speaking to somebody just a couple of weeks ago, and she had no idea about sustainable websites. I was talking about my website, which is done by Kakadu Creative. Jackie Kaylee.
Yes, Kaylee. Yeah, wonderful.
Awesome lady. And, she and her partner did my website. And the average website emits 2 to 4 grams of carbon dioxide per page. Mine emits about a 0.29. So we're talking a tiny fraction. I was talking to quite a vegan who'd been around for a long time. I was on her podcast and she went, "What? Are you telling me that websites can be sustainable or unsustainable?" So, yeah, she had no idea. I had no idea, no concept that the internet itself can be sustainable or unsustainable, or ethical or unethical. No concept. So this is what it's all about. If you've got an idea, or even if you've got a book but you don't know how to leverage it, get on a call with me. Let's get you unstuck. Let's put a small little plan together for you to go off and start implementing. Because it's not even just about getting out to non-vegans about what we're doing. It's informing other vegans. We kind of need to work together. We need to be, and that's why I love what Andrew Alexander was talking about with his documentary, in other vegans learning about what they're doing. Because so many vegans don't know about things that we're doing. So how can we come together and work as a whole and create this vegan normal world if we don't know what another vegan is doing over there? So yeah, get in touch with me and let's talk.
Wow. Well,
absolutely.
Please do, folks. Once again, links are all over the place, descriptions, comment boxes, everywhere. I should one day figure out which side it is I'm pointing to, but links are there. Get over to the website. If this is something that interests you, then please do contact Mitali and start doing the best that you can for your organization, your business, whatever it is you want to create. Hopefully this book is the avenue and that first real landmark to making that big difference, and that big difference for the animals. As Mitali put it so well, we need all of this, and as we like to say, activism across the board. We need folks doing everything that they can, learning everything they can. I didn't realize as well about the websites either. So
I knew that, but that's because Mitali and I talk. So.
I get left out over here with my grumpy hat on, but there's so much more to learn. This is why we tend to refer to veganism as a journey a lot of the time, because we're always picking up new things along the way. We never quite get to that end destination because there's always a new thing to enlighten us about it. But the more we learn along the way, the better the journey is. So it's so fantastic to have you. I can't thank you enough for coming today and speaking to us. It's it's been inspirational for us.
I have to say, as somebody
thank you so much. I must have enjoyed myself because I am now sat in darkness and I didn't even realize until you said it. It's actually the sun's gone down and I am just sat in darkness. And I didn't even. I was so engrossed in just speaking to you guys. I was like, oh, I am in darkness now.
We were in dark when we started, so we swapped. But I have to say, there, as someone who's done it, there is no feeling in the world like opening that box and taking out the first copy of your very own book and be like, this is what I've made. I've done it. It really is such an achievement.
Get my clients to take a picture of them or get a family member to video them as they're opening the book and send it to them on WhatsApp. I just get a kick out of seeing their faces. It is a milestone. It really is a milestone. It's something that you remember. I became an author on that day. So yeah, it's
an amazing feeling. And as Mitali said, the great thing is that the book isn't the end. It's not something that you pick up and be like, right, been there, done that, on to the next thing. The book is just the beginning, and this is what Mitali is all about. And for any of you watching that, do get in touch with her. I can't wait to see what you come up with. So thank you so much for joining us, lovely lady.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank everyone in the audience for sticking with us through this. I hope it's been informative. It's been informative for me. So either way, we're on a win. I feel it's just it's great to see everyone who has like Suli and sticking throughout the whole episode is fantastic. It's been an hour and a half. Wow. But yeah, too much fun being had. So hopefully, we'll see Mitali again in the future here. And everyone, please click those links. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your mornings, your afternoons, your evenings, wherever you're at around the world. It's been lovely having you. And so keep fighting for the animals and get out there writing books, hopefully. We'll catch you next time.
Catch you again.